13, and the Falcons are coming off the bye, back at home, hosting the Los Angeles Chargers, hoping to get a win back on the board after dropping 2 right before the bye. Thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show, presented by Ticketmaster Taylor Vismor and Derek Rackley. It's Thanksgiving weekend, and there's lots to be thankful for, right?
Yeah, lots to be thankful for. A bye week. Hopefully the Falcons got rested, rejuvenated, ready to make this push at the end of the season, that we are back inside the stadium. And I emphasize inside just for personal reasons because this is my third game in 4 days. But my last 2 have been outside in Green Bay and in Columbus, Ohio, and I've been freezing. So I'm happy to be warm today.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad the roof is closed.
Yes, closed roof.
My mom texted me and said, is the roof closed today? I'm like, Mom, it's like 30 degrees outside. Of course it's closed. So roof is closed today, but the Falcons are back at home. And like you said, you've been gone for a couple days now calling different games. It's been a good slate of football this Thanksgiving week. I know both NFL and college, you've called both. Any favorites so far this week?
I would just say 2 college games would have been my favorite. First has been Georgia Tech. I think that was just an awesome football game to watch. And then I did call the Ohio State-Michigan game on radio in a bizarre game for a number of reasons. Obviously, Michigan knocking off Ohio State for the 4th straight time, and then the shenanigans that happened after the game.
Yes.
Unfortunate.
Yes, and I want to give a shout-out to Jenny Taft. She's not watching this, I doubt it, but Jenny Taft was so professional in all of that, right? She did, like, the post-game interview, and the coach hands a random player off to her, and she's like, oh, okay, let's interview you now. And then the scuffle started, and they had to stop the interview and find another player for her to interview.
Yeah.
So it was just a mess, but that's kind of what rivalry week has come to in the sea of in college football, and obviously Georgia Tech, go Dogs. Everyone knows I'm a dog. But we have a big game today against the Chargers, the Falcons, of course, at home at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And something that Raheem Morris had been saying all along is when we started this season, we wanted to make sure that we were playing meaningful football in November and December. And now you are. You're in December. You're December 1st, actually, but you're in November, December. And this is the most important stretch for these Falcons right now, especially coming off of 2 losses in a bye week. What kind of needs to happen today to make sure we're going on the right track towards the playoffs instead of playing meaningless football later in December?
I mean, a lot of things. I would say offense needs to play much more consistent and execute. Offense has just not been consistent enough lately. You look at scoring points over the last couple weeks, has just not quite been there. Defense needs to tighten down. Obviously, they're going to face one of the better young quarterbacks in the National Football League. Yes, they are undermanned a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit more as this pregame show ends up moving along with J.K. Dobbins being out of the backfield for the Chargers. But they're going to face a challenge because anytime you go up against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, sometimes it doesn't matter who's in or who's out because they're that good. They just distribute the football to playmakers, and so they're going to have their work cut out for them today on defense.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned the guys being out, and there's guys out for both of these teams, obviously. Let's start with the Falcons and actors. We're going to switch it up a little bit today with our run of show. Mike Hughes will be out today. Coming into this week, Younghoe Koo was questionable with a right hip injury. He is good to go today. He will be active. And then obviously the inactives for the Chargers aren't as telling as their injured reserve is. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins was placed on IR after his game on Monday night against the Ravens. He went down with a knee injury, did not return to the game, and was later placed on IR. And then obviously you have Cam Hart here as well, the cornerback. And then you have Alohi Gilman. He was placed on IR, the safety for them. So some key guys out for this team, but the main story today being that J.K. Dobbins is out.
Yeah, I mean, J.K. Dobbins came over and kind of re-energized, revitalized his career, if you will, with the Chargers. Battled some injuries throughout his career, but he's come back, and he has come back with a force this year in Los Angeles. Here's some of the numbers: 766 yards, 8 touchdowns. But even more so is the stuff that you don't see on the screen. Just listening to the coaching staff, listening to Jim Harbaugh, listening to the offensive coordinator talk about how much he has meant to this team with his energy, with his passion, and what he brings to this offense has been an excellent compliment to Herbert at the quarterback position. The fact that they're going to miss him is definitely going to hurt the Chargers. They're going to have to go with a committee, if you will, at the running back position. It is a benefit to the Atlanta Falcons, yes, but I would also say you go back to that Saints game a few weeks ago. Yeah. There was a number of really good players that were not playing in that game, and Atlanta did not take advantage of that. So just because J.K. Dobbins is not playing, you don't sit back and say, oh, yeah, we're going to shut down the run game. you still got to focus, if not prepare even more, so you don't have a letdown in that area.
Yeah, and you have to prepare for Justin Herbert to air it out a little bit more, potentially with J.K. being out, which we'll talk about him a little bit later in the show. But something on the bright side for this Falcons team is going into Denver, there were a ton of guys on the secondary that were inactive, that were not playing, to the point where Richie Grant had to come in as nickel.
Yeah.
He's a safety, never played nickel before, and had to come in and fill that role for the Falcons, obviously with the loss to Denver. But now coming into this week 13, all those guys, with the exception of Mike Hughes, they are back off the inactives list. They will be active today. How does that help this Falcons team move forward and hopefully get the win over the Chargers today?
It's almost like a little sense of relief that you get some reinforcements back, right? D. Alford has been such a huge piece to this defense, especially playing that nickel position, and the fact that, well, maybe he ends up sliding to the corner or he does still play in the nickel. We don't quite know the answer to that yet, but the fact that he's back in the game is just a huge kind of sigh of relief for the defensive backs to say, okay, D's back in the game. The linebackers to feel comfortable about the guy that's next to them and all the playmaking ability that he brings. If you look at that Broncos game, or even going back to the Saints game as well, just the fact that this team in general was healthy to start, even through probably the first half of the year, and then the injuries kind of started to mount up a little bit, and that's what you just hope as an NFL team, is that you can get through a season staying fairly healthy. You can't stay completely healthy. It just never happens. But fairly healthy helps, and getting D. Alford back in the defensive lineup will be a big time for him.
I agree, and I think where the bye kind of hit for this Falcons team, really the whole schedule, if you look at it, like I think I mentioned this before the bye, you go for the first 5 weeks and you have a Thursday night game, you have a mini bye to kind of rest up, get rejuvenated, take a break from football, kind of walk away from the game for a little bit, then come back on Monday for week 6 until week 11. You play that week 11 game, week 12, you're on the bye. You have a whole week to get rest up, rejuvenated, kind of get your mind back right for the next slate of weeks that you have. That all of these games are important, and we were talking before the show started how important this game was for the Falcons, because now you have to win this game today, because what's happening right now in the NFC South rankings right now is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one game back from the Falcons. And if the Bucs are to win today against Carolina and the Falcons are to lose today to the Chargers, now you're tied in the NFC South. I know that the Falcons are 4-1 in the NFC South division standings, but how do you clinch the playoff spot? Let's kind of start talking about the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you start losing games here, and playoffs are determined. Division winners are determined by overall record. It's not in-division record. Now, in-division record does help you break ties, which Atlanta is going to have that edge on Tampa Bay, but you don't want to start losing games here in December. This is the time where you set yourself up for the postseason, and Atlanta was in the driver's seat and where they were a couple of weeks before the bye until they ended up playing New Orleans. Then you lose that game, you go on the road against Denver, you lose that game, and then you go into the bye with just a completely different mindset. Just think about this, Taylor. There are teams that when they go into their bye, their win-loss record is basically already determined that they're not going to the postseason. It's just not going to be in the cards for them. That's not the case for Atlanta, but they lost 2 games going into the bye. So how do you kind of recalibrate, if you will, coming out of the bye week for this such important stretch? And you don't want to think about what happens 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road. Think about what happens today against a really talented Chargers team. But you're right. I think it's an extremely important and pivotal game at home that they come away with a victory. Atlanta has not fared well against the AFC this year. 0-3, 11 points per game, -4 in a turnover margin against the AFC this year. We've got an AFC opponent in the house. It's got to be a much different performance today.
It's got to be a much different performance, especially from the last AFC game they played, which was against the Denver Broncos. But something I want to bring up, you mentioned as a player, as a coach, you don't want to look too far ahead in your schedule, but we can, because they are play at home today against the Los Angeles Chargers, but then they're on the road 2 weeks in a row against the Minnesota Vikings, where Kirk Cousins will make his return to Minnesota, and then they're going to go on the road again the next week, play Monday night against the Raiders. So this is a must-win game, because you're not going to have a home field advantage anymore. If you're going to win any of those 3 games, you got to win this one today.
Yeah, you're right. And as broadcasters, we can kind of talk about the schedule and how things are laying out in the near future. But as a player, all you are concerned about is today. And they've got their hands full, not only just on offense going up against some of the pass rushers that they're going to see today. We'll get into that a little bit later. But defensively against this quarterback and how he can distribute the football, and the young receivers that Justin Herbert has at his discretion that are playing really well this this year. The challenge is today,
Yes.
and find a way to score points, because that's been an issue lately and when they've played against the AFC.
Yes. Speaking of today is My Claws, My Cleats for the Atlanta Falcons and throughout the league. So many of the Falcons will be wearing these decked out cleats. There is Justin Simmons. He's supporting International Justice Mission. We have guys like Kyle Pitts, who's doing the Kyle Pitts Foundation. Kadero Hodge is doing the hidden opponent. And of course, Caden Ellis has one of the coolest causes this year. And we've done a whole feature on Caden Ellis of what his cause and his cleats mean to him and why it's so important to his family.
My cause, overarching is adoption, foster care. The organization I'm partnering with is Georgia Kids Belong. So we're my second year partnering with them, and they just do an amazing job. They really focus on foster care and helping those kids that have been stuck in that system for who knows how long, finding them a new home, finding them a mom and a dad and siblings and family and love. So it's pretty awesome what they do.
My family was 12 kids. I'm the oldest of 12, and 7 have been adopted by biological. We got a big old family, and so just, something that pretty much all of us have talked about. We want to continue to, my parents kind of started that legacy. We want to continue that in every way, shape, or form we can.
This particular initiative is our I Belong project. We are advocating for kids who are in Georgia's foster system, whose parental rights have been terminated. Our goal today is to get some video of each child and help them tell their own stories, amplify their own voices, to help them find adoptive families.
Get to see just the reality of it. And some kids are without a home, some kids are without parents, kids are without love, and that's heartbreaking. So again, just to be out here to love on them, to get to use the platform to do love on them is awesome.
The childhood that we had and how my parents just handled everything, the good, bad, and the ugly, has just turned out to be something special, something precious and pure, and I think I've taken all of it. Really, they lived a life that I view as worth repeating, and that's kind of what I want to do. I want to have my family. I want to use the platform, the NFL, however God allows me to use it. I want to go adopt some kiddos.
Caden's willingness to use this platform is a gift. It increases the likelihood that these kiddos will find families.
It was a really special event. I think it's just a really awesome opportunity to, get something out there. You play this game and you're in the National Football League on the biggest stage, and all of a sudden one game you're allowed to wear something that means a lot to you. Just check it out, go to their website and give them some love and give those kids some love too.
Such a great story, and it's always so great to have your cause be something that you're so passionate about, right? Like he said, one of 12 children, and a bunch of those kids are adopted, and Taryn Walk actually did a whole editorial written story on what that cause is for him and what that family life looked like, and she wrote about this table that they have at their house that their dad was in the NFL, so they would travel and they would move everywhere, and they had this 12-foot table that would sit 12 kids, and now it's hanging in their garage, and it's just a memento of what their childhood was, and to grow up in a home with that many kids where everyone's always doing something, everyone always has something to support. It's so cool. So really awesome opportunity for Caden to kind of tell a story.
Yeah, I love this whole initiative from the NFL, and unfortunately it wasn't around when I was playing. We didn't have a chance to do the design of the My Cause, My Cleats, and to be able to get your own charity out there and use your platform. But most NFL players have some really intriguing stories just like this, that if it wasn't for causes and initiatives like this, you may not know that side of the NFL players, the true human, the personal side. Everybody just sees the celebrity side. They see the money, they see the splashes, the highlights made on Sundays, but you don't necessarily hear the background of what makes the player, what makes them go, what is their why, if you will. So to see Caden Ellis and some of the other guys on the team were able to get that message out by using this My Cause, My Cleats initiative is pretty special.
Yeah, and since I've been here, which is now my third season, I've seen the cleat art has gotten incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Insane. So make sure to check out those cleats. They're real. I wouldn't want to wear them and play in them. I wouldn't want to scuff them up or anything. But let's go ahead and get to the LA Chargers today, because this is a new team that we haven't seen in a while. It's an AFC team. Might not know a ton of players on this team, but one player that you definitely do know is Justin Herbert. And this year, Justin is working under a new head coach, new scheme, new situation for him, and he's doing just fine.
Yeah, and Jim Harbaugh just loves. He raves to the point to where he man crushes over his quarterback. And And Justin Herbert is having another excellent season. And here's what I will say. You see the 62.9% completion rate, but the interesting note about this is he battled an ankle injury early in the season. In his first 4 games, he averaged about 145 passing yards per game over those first 4, but he was still getting over an ankle injury, wasn't quite 100%. Well, the last 2 months, now 261 yards per game. And the interesting note is you see number 2 there, 282 consecutive passes without an interception. And just to bring that even further, he's looking to become just the 4th quarterback all time with 10 straight starts without an interception. So you talk about how do you win games in the National Football League? Ball security. Don't turn it over. Well, I think it's safe to say that Justin Herbert has not been turning the ball over this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you ask anyone that is an analyst of football and the NFL, if you ask, hey, what's like the edge of Justin Herbert, they always say, oh, the guy was made in a lab for the NFL. He can hit every point in on the NFL field, whether that's a short ball, medium, deep. He loves throwing the deep ball. He's very accurate with the deep ball, but the way that he's able to play, the way that he's able to watch the field and hit his progression at every point, I mean, the guy, it feels like he was made in a lab, right?
Yeah, and not from just the physical side, but the mental makeup as well. And I got a chance to listen to some of the quotes that the coaches have said about Justin Herbert, and from Jim Harbaugh to the offensive coordinator, saying that not only is he the hardest worker, that he's such a great athlete, they believe that not only could he play in the NFL at tight end, but he could play defensive back, just showing how versatile this kid is. And they say sometimes the money can end up getting to a guy, and they're like, it hasn't gotten to him. He's just as cool of a person, a family-centered person. They said that his parents raised him with these 4 morals that he still lives by to this day, that he has talked to the team about. So he is just kind of like your picture-perfect leader as a franchise quarterback, and he's done that throughout his career, and that's the reason why they are a 7-4 ball club. That's the reason why they can move on from a couple really good receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen that they've had before and still have success, because they've got the signal caller that can make it all happen.
Yeah, and it was really interesting watching him with Staley and that offense and that whole scheme that they had there, because they really ran the offense through Justin Herbert with every single snap, every single play. Everyone was looking at Justin Herbert. And then you see now with Greg Roman and Harbaugh, of course, with this offensive scheme, is that they're really relying on the running game as well. It's not all on Justin every single time. Yes, every snap does go to Justin Herbert, but not every single play is running through Justin Herbert. If you look through the first 12 weeks this year, he's only had 313 attempts. Last year, through 12 games, he had 402. 2022, he had 463 attempts. Yeah. So they're bringing his attempts way down this year because they're relying on that run game. Of course, with J.K. Dobbins, who was a good guy, and with the Ravens, with Greg Roman, obviously has that continuity there with the offensive coordinator here with the Chargers. But now with J.K. being out, will we see more attempts today from Justin Herbert, or are they still going to try to run the game through both Herbert and the run game?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because it's kind of uncharted waters today, because they ran so much of the offense through J.K. Dobbins and the success that he had and how he ended up making Justin Herbert and this entire offense better, because you couldn't just sit back and pin your ears back as a pass rusher to get after him in the passing game, because you knew he was going to throw it as many times as you talked about the last couple of years. And because they were a more predictable passing team, you could sit back, you could play coverage, you could look for the football. But now, because they had J.K. Dobbins, you could start to commit more eyes to the backfield. So what does that happen? Now you got Gus Edwards, the guy that we're seeing right here, is somebody that's going to end up having to step up. Now, he's not going to necessarily bring the same thing that we saw with J.K. Dobbins. It's going to have to be more of a team approach. But him, along with Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal, are going to be the 3 guys that they're going to look to see if they can get somewhat of the same kind of production and balance that they had with J.K. Dobbins. That's going to be the challenge, not only for the Chargers offensively, but the shift that Atlanta's going to have to make from a game planning perspective, because of all the tape that they're watching that's going to see J.K. Dobbins and how he's ended up opening up this offense up is going to change a little bit today. So they're going to have to adjust on the fly.
Yeah, well, let's talk about who Justin Herbert will probably be leaning on a little bit more, which is going to be Ladd McConkey. He's a rookie Out of Georgia. You told me I can't be a homer, and I'm not going to be. But let's just be honest about McConkey. He's having a great rookie season so far. I think one of the biggest questions for this Chargers team coming into the offseason, going into the draft, was how do you fill the holes of all of these free agents that left the Chargers for other teams like a Keenan Allen, who's now with the Bears? How do you fill it? And obviously, Ladd McConkey has been that answer.
Yeah, they've been finding that out early on, that McConkey is not only somebody that they feel like can help fill the void, but he's somebody that's been dependable. And here's what I would say about the National Football League and wide receivers is there's this thing about, okay, you could be fast, you can have all the intangibles, you can have the great combine and all the other things, but can you get open?
Right.
That's what they are more concerned about with anything else. So I go back and I think about the Puka Nakuas of the world, or even when I was playing back in the 2000s, the Brian Finnerans of the world. Brian Finneran was not one of the fastest players in the National Football League. He wasn't one of the fastest players on our team, but he knew how to get open. And I think that's the same thing that Ladd McConkey has shown the Chargers organization, and he has shown Justin Herbert, is that I will create separation, I will win at the line of scrimmage, and I'm going to get open. And if you can do that, you can win that trust for your quarterback. That's how you start to put up numbers like we're seeing with Ladd McConkey. 49 receptions. I'll bring a little context to that. He's got a chance to break Keenan Allen's franchise record for a rookie of 71, and he basically needs 4 receptions per game, which I think is well within his reach.
Yeah.
That's the type of season. Don't look at the 4 touchdowns and say, well, it's just been okay. He's got a chance to break Keenan Allen's rookie record for catches. This is a guy that's showing that he's winning at the line of scrimmage. He's earned the trust of the quarterback, and he is getting open. That's how you win in the passing game.
Yeah, you brought up the trust of the quarterback, and obviously Keenan Allen was that guy for Justin Herbert. He came in as a rookie, worked with Keenan Allen, and they had that rapport there. And then that was the biggest question, is who's going to fill the role of Keenan Allen and the comfortability that Justin Herbert had with Keenan. And I think what you saw last week on Monday, there was this pivotal fourth and 8. It was late in the fourth quarter. They had to score on the play. 4th and 8, they had to go for it. And, of course, he throws it to Ladd. And I think that was the moment for me where I was like, that is the new Keenan Allen for Justin Herbert. That's the new wide receiver one that he knows he can rely on in a 4th and 8 situation. Like, that's crazy to rely on a rookie that much and have that much trust in a rookie at this point in the NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows here the other 2 receivers, Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer, those guys have got 82 targets. Ladd McConkey 69. So almost the same amount of targets going to the rookie as to what you would call the number 2 and 3 receivers for the Chargers. But don't want to sit there and say all the focus on McConkey. The other 2 are completely talented players as well, and they can beat you if you focus all your attention on McConkey. But that has been the area that Justin Herbert has leaned on early in this season.
Let me ask you this, because coming into the Saints game, right, week 10, week 9, I can't even remember. We're at the point in the NFL season where I'm like, what week was that? Anyway, going into the Saints game, there were so many injuries for the Saints that I think a lot of people, including it felt like the players even, were like, oh, I mean, we're just going to go out there and we're going to play and it'll be fine because these guys don't have a ton of reps. With J.K. Dobbins going out and with the learnings from the Saints, what do you expect for this Falcons defense to be able to do against this Chargers offense with J.K. Dobbins being
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like a great point and a great parallel to go back 3 weeks ago, because once you think that, a team doesn't have some of its stars, then we're going to be good. We're going to be in good shape. And on paper, it's one of those things where you say, we should have a better chance to be successful because they don't have a player like J.K. Dobbins. But I would also say this, Gus Edwards is a pro, and he's been around the league for a long time. He's a different back than J.K. Dobbins is, but he's a completely capable back, and he can make you miss, and he can make plays, and he can catch the ball in the backfield, and he can slip out of tackles, and he can pick up first downs. That's the thing that's been hurting Atlanta, is they've been giving up too many first downs, staying on the field too long, and ultimately giving up too many points. So it just goes back to the same things as it always is. You got to stop the run first. You got to get after the quarterback, which we know Atlanta has had their issues doing that. You got to get off the field on 3rd down. If you can do those things, they don't even get into the vicinity of scoring points. But you got to get off the field on 3rd down. Starts with stopping the run and obviously slowing down Justin Herbert in this passing game.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to this Chargers defense, because it's a pretty good defense as well. They're sack machines. That front 7 is hard to go against and hard to kind of defend your quarterback when these front 7 are coming down on your throat all game long. Kind of talk to me about this Chargers defense. Yeah,
I mean, going into, you've got some guys that can get after the passer, and that's the most interesting and maybe thing that you highlight the most is all these guys that have gotten after the quarterback. Let me just focus on a couple guys. Joey Bosa, not on this graphic, but 70 career sacks. Khalil Mack, he's got 106 career sacks. Bud Dupree, which we know was here last year, he's got 58 career sacks. That's 234, and we're not even counting the two guys on the left and the right.
Yeah.
So they can get after the quarterback, and they know, and it's been talked about from their coordinators this week, is you're facing a quarterback in Kirk Cousins that's going to stay in the pocket, right? So what do they know? They don't have to attack him the same way on Monday night that they had to with Lamar Jackson. You've got to be so much more careful in your pass rushing lanes when you're going up against a threat like Lamar Jackson. That's not going to be the case with Kirk Cousins. They know where he's going to be and that he's not going to slip out. So they're going to be pinning their ears back in passing situations. So if you're Atlanta, what do? You got to stay out of those typical passing situations. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 13. That this defense knows what you're going to do, and they've got the personnel to get after the quarterback. The best way to combat that is to stay in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. Because guess what? You can turn around and hand the ball to Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. You can throw the ball quickly out to the flat where you don't have to hold on to it. They can pick up a first down. That's much harder to do when you're sitting in 3rd and 12.
Yeah, you bring up Kirk Cousins, and I kind of want to touch on him just quickly because of this front seven that the Chargers do have, and how everyone in the league seems to know, well, Kirk Cousins is not going to move out of the pocket. Looking at the 11 weeks going into bye, what do you think Kirk Cousins kind of looked at himself and said, okay, I need to fix this to make this team better, this offense more explosive down the last stretch?
Yeah, it's not one of those things where it's easy for a quarterback in Kirk Cousins to say, I do this, that, and this better, and we're going to be a better team. Okay. Because it's not all on Kirk's shoulders. There's been times when he's probably had a good option and the pass protection is broke down. There's probably been times when he threw it a little bit off timing and it was an incomplete pass. There's probably a time where everything was perfect and all of a sudden a linebacker reached up and got a fingertip on the football and deflected it, right? So it's hard to pinpoint what one person can do to make this entire offense better. What I can tell you that needs to happen is Kirk needs to be better with the football as far as ball security. Let's go back to the wins and losses this year for the Atlanta Falcons. For Kirk Cousins, in their wins, 14 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. In their losses, 3 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. That's been a direct effect of wins and losses is how much you turn over the ball. We'll get to that more when we get to the keys to this game, but his job is to make sure that when he gets the ball out of his hands, he sees a nice clean window that's not going to get deflected, throw the ball on time, and don't throw it to the opposite color jersey.
Yeah, I think also with this defense, we talk so much about the front seven, but also they're really good at holding teams to not a lot of points. Yeah. They're the best scoring defense in this league right now, averaging about 15.9 points for the opposing team. What do you make of that, especially looking at the red zone and how the Falcons have kind of struggled late in the red zone and making instead of field goals, touchdowns? That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mentality for a team, and it's a confidence level. The fact that we just talked about their pass rushing ability, right? They're confident that they can get after the passer. You get after the passer, you get sacked, you get off the field on 3rd down. Again, like I talked about, you don't even have a chance to score in the game. But then they buckle down, they make plays in the red zone, and they're probably forcing teams to a whole lot more field goals than they are touchdowns in this game. So this defense is coming in with a ton of confidence. You talked about less than 16 points per game. Not only does that lead the NFL, that's the 3rd best through 11 games in Chargers team history. That shows how good this defense has been playing this year. So you're going to have to score points if you want to beat this team. You have to take advantage of every possession, but you're going to have to work hard because it's not going to be easy going up against this group.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and get to the keys of the game presented by Wells Fargo because, like you said, this is going to be a hard-fought battle for the Falcons to come out on top. What is your first key to the game today? Points at a premium.
Just talked about it, right? Perfect segue here, talking about this Chargers defense and how they limit opposing offenses to score points on them. So just think about it. This is kind of like a math issue, right? If you get, call it 12 to 14 possessions a game, you got to make them count, right? So every time you either turn it over or you have to punt, you're limiting your opportunities to put points on the board. So when you cross the 50, when you get into the red zone, it has to be execution, execution, execution to put points on the board because this defense has been stingy. And we talked about the numbers. This is an offense that has to score points if we're going to win games.
Yeah, you bring up points. And through Week 12, this Chargers defense has forced punts on 46% of their opposing team's drives. That's the highest in the NFL. So if this Falcons team can get moving, get rolling early in this game, like we've kind of talked about all season long, kind of keep Bradley Pinion cool down. Don't even get warmed up. Just stay cool on the side. That would be perfect for the Falcons. What's your second key to the game today?
Second key is going to be balance on offense, and we got a chance to see some of the playmakers there on this Atlanta Falcons offense. And as much as, again, we talk about that Thursday night game against Tampa, and we saw Kirk Cousins go off, this needs to be a balanced offensive approach. Get guys like Drake London the football. Get guys like Darnell Mooney the football. And how about these two backs in the backfield? Like, let them establish the line of scrimmage, get slippery, miss tackles, Tyler Algier running some people over, and then let it set up the passing game downfield, right? That's been the strength when this offense has operated at its best, is they're running the football, they're distributing it out on the perimeter in the passing game. Kirk's getting the ball out on time. To me, it's all about balance. Can you run the football and use play action and drop back as a complement?
All right, we'll see if they can do that today. What's your third and final key to the game?
Yeah, it's going to be win to turnover margin. I talked about it already in the kind of wins losses this year, especially against the AFC. -4 in the turnover margin against AFC teams this year when the Falcons are 0-3. Win the turnover margin. That's not just securing it on offense and special teams. That's raking the football away on defense when they run the football. When the ball is up there, 50-50 balls, let's not only knock that away, let's go find a way to steal a possession with an interception. How do you slow down Justin Herbert? Just like you talked about a second ago. Keep him on the sidelines, right? So if it gets a third down and he's throwing the football, let's steal a possession away, win the turnover margin. Atlanta's got a great shot of winning this game at home if they can win that ever so important statistical category.
Yeah, we didn't mention this earlier in the inactives, but Nate Lamb and Troy Anderson, they're both active today. They love punching the ball out along with Jesse Bates. They call themselves the Bloody Knuckles crew. So turnovers are not just interceptions, but they are punch-outs as well, forced fumbles and fumble recoveries. So we'll see what can happen today. It's time, though, for my preference, of
Still
course.
waiting for this little graphic, right?
It's only allowed for away games, and I kind of love it. So that's why you guys have to watch the away game pregame shows, because I have a little, like, Taylor's preference graphic at the very bottom, which is really cute. Anyway, my preference today is just to cut off the connection between Herbert and Ladd. We talked about it ad nauseum today about how good Ladd is with Herbert under center. So if you can cut off that connection today and force them to run the ball with guys, yes, you said Gus Edwards. He is a pro. He's been in this league for a while. But if you can force them to run the ball, look at their wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, even a tight end. I think that if you can cut that connection off between Herbert and Ladd, you will be in good territory and an opportunity to possibly pick the ball off Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons. We'll see.
I'm sorry, but show this picture of Ladd McConkey. It's just it's unbelievable because you can't look at a guy in profile, right? Like, we're just looking at Ladd McConkey.
Don't be mean.
He looks like he works at 7-Eleven.
Don't be mean.
But this is one of the most dangerous receivers right now. I mean, his helmet almost looks like it was too big for him.
Two-time national champion right there. Put some respect on that
Here
man's
we go.
name.
Here we go.
Put some respect on his name.
I knew the Georgia girl was going to come out.
Listen. I hope that the Falcons beat Ladd McConkey today, but I hope that Ladd has a great rest of the year.
I was going to say, you just said limit McConkey. Don't you say they have let him.
Limit him today, but let him go off the rest of the season. Maybe we'll see him in the playoffs, so we don't know. But anyway, we're going to let you guys go ahead and turn your channels to, what is the game on today? I got to find my notes. It's on CBS and NFL Plus. It starts at 1:05. Until next time, we'll see you back at Ticketmaster Studios, where I will have my little preference graphic next week. So we'll see you then.
7-Eleven.
Bye, guys.